fail to choose, the world will end.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Oscar vs. Trevor here, joined by Thomas as always. And we're here to knock at the cabin. And that's do I hear a good movie? No, I don't.
You're still going with that joke? Sure.
Yeah. No, this is our second time recording. Same joke.
Same joke.
The audience doesn't know. They know now.
No.
What a twist. Oh wow, we're just going
wow.
really.
Wow.
I should stop. This movie wasn't great.
No, it was mixed negative. Like, it's not terrible. M. Night Shyamalan has made some really bad films in the past. It's not one of those. It's not Lady in the Water. It's not Last Airbender. It's not After Earth. Don't worry about that.
Could have been worse.
Having said that, it's not good. There is a lot of elements to like. There's a lot of elements that will significantly detract from the overall experience. So,
yeah, could have been worse. Could have been a lot better. Yeah. So we can just get into it. I think that at the core of this movie's problems is just the screenplay, but let's start on a positive note. It's really well directed. Shyamalan is a good director.
There are some really nice looking shots. The lighting is very nice throughout, and he is able to, again, time and time again, he's demonstrated he can create tension. Even in his worst films, there is still an element of tension that keeps you sort of engaged enough throughout and stops it from being a boring film, because this film is far from boring. Like, it's breezy, it's short, it's an easy watch, it's enjoyable enough. However, there are problems with it. So.
Like, Shyamalan is a great visual storyteller. Unfortunately, he's too good of a visual storyteller that, like, his movies might be better off if you just don't hear them, because he's not a very good writer.
No. Yeah.
And yes, so the screenplay wasn't written by him. It was written by other people, and it's based off of a book. I understand that. But the job of adaptation is to adapt it for the medium of film. And
it doesn't work, really. I don't think this story would have ever really worked in the film.
You'd have to completely restructure it.
Exactly. And we talked about ways that you could have restructured before the stream. I'm sure we'll talk about them on this video.
We'll get into spoilers later. Later.
Yeah. But to put it simply, this film would have needed a lot of restructuring to properly work. And you would have had to go right back to the beginning concept, because the concept is decent. Like, it's not his most inventive concept, but it is a decent concept to start your story with. However, again, M. Night Shyamalan just can't seem to weave an interesting enough plot that can create a satisfying ending. All of M. Night Shyamalan's endings don't really work for me. Like The Sixth Sense, sure.
Regardless of twist or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Twist or not, M. Night Shyamalan, 90% of the time, can't do endings. And that is demonstrated here once again. The ending is where the film really derails, in my opinion.
Yeah. I just feel like, he writes himself into these corners. And instead of, like, creating an interesting way to get out of them, they just kind of exist.
Get out of them, yeah.
Ignored. And then there's just a very stupid reason or non-reason. And, like, this final act is just very goofy. And there's never enough character development for it to feel earned, to where it doesn't feel so goofy, and to where I care about the characters enough to where I can, like, ignore the problems. Like, it just, everything is so undercooked because so much of the movie is just set up. But if your payoff is going to be goofy and silly because you wrote yourself into so much of a corner because you set up so much, no characters, then why do I care?
No, exactly. And I do think, weirdly, we get too much sort of development for the four horsemen. I guess we'll call them, like, Dave Bautista, Rupert Grint, those people. I think we get a little too much development for them at the sake of developing the family. I feel like the family needed to really be the focus if you're going to tell the story in this way. And I just don't think they were developed enough. They didn't feel fleshed out enough. They were just sort of like pawns in whatever the sort of plot was happening, and whatever they needed to do, they would just do that really without motivation or anything like that. And therefore, when you get to the ending, you just don't care about anything because you're not invested in the character struggle.
And, like, to talk about some positives again, like, as you said, very well shot. I think it uses the shallow depth of field in a really nice and creative way, because, like, it has the idea of, like, withholding information, and we're withholding information from the characters by using such a shallow depth of field. Then now we're keeping the characters almost, like, isolated from everything around them, and they can't really see what's beyond the perimeters, especially with some really, like, harshly lit, like, close-ups, and, like, there's some really, really nice visual storytelling. Dave Bautista is great.
It's great. Yeah,
really good. like he plays this like soft antagonist and like very like empathetic foil to our protagonists, like really really well.
Yeah.
Just like a
It's a
big
varied
teddy
performance. It's
bear.
not like one note. It is a varied performance, which
Yes,
I think is
it's
great to see from him.
legitimately good performance.
Yeah, I do think exposition is a real key problem with this film. Like, it just doesn't really know how to do it. But when the exposition is coming from Dave Bautista, I think it's all right. Like, the dialogue is still not great,
Yeah.
but delivered by him, I feel he delivers it well. He delivers it with enough sort of gravitas, and it actually feels okay. If
Yeah.
it's delivered by any other character, by any other of the actors, I don't think it works, and I think it's a fundamental flaw of the film.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Bautista is just a good actor. I don't know what else.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
the only wrestler turned actor I've been impressed by. No, he's a legitimately good actor. I think he carries a lot of this film. I don't think that this film works if
Without him,
this
no.
role was in the hand of somebody
No.
else. Like it was very specifically like a fantastic role for him. Like if this was like The Rock or something, like the movie would not. It would have been awful.
God, yeah, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So like I think that there are a lot of things to like. I was on the edge of my seat. It builds tension
It's
really,
tense.
really
It's
well.
thrilling. Yeah. Like, I think it creates a sense of isolation quite well. Like, it is sort of a chambered drama in a way because it's really only
Yeah.
just set. But it uses the space well, and it does create this sort of isolating feel that is good and that you do want out of a horror film like this, or I guess thriller. It's sort of a horror. I don't know.
I mean, he
It's
uses
one of
the
those.
space really, really well to create
Yeah.
like this like microcosm within this cabin.
Yeah.
So I think that the pacing is good. However, there are some
Yeah.
massive structural issues. There are a bunch of flashbacks that feel like attempts to develop the protagonists, but in such an unproductive way that it would almost have been better if they just weren't even there.
Yeah.
Like
Honestly.
there's a
Yeah.
difference between development and just showing us the characters.
Yeah.
That isn't development. That's just meaningless scenes.
Yeah,
And it
like, it
really
was
kind
just
of
like,
disrupted the
oh,
flow.
I know slightly more about the character. That doesn't really inform his motivations or anything about the character in
Right.
any
It was
meaningful way.
irrelevant information.
It's just more information that I don't really need to know. And again, like, I think M. Night Shyamalan is sort of the opposite of Sorkin, where Sorkin, great writer, that's pretty undeniable, can't really direct to save his life. M. Night Shyamalan is a really quite decent director. Like, he knows what he's doing visually, he just can't write a competent plot, really.
Yeah. And again, this was based on a book, and like
But
there's an alternate ending to the book. Well, it was
Yes.
just the ending to the book, I guess, and it was changed for this. I don't think the ending for the book works. I won't say what it is. The ending for the book doesn't work either, but it at least would have been bold and interesting.
It would have been a bit more interesting. Yeah, like, this is a very weird thing to say about an M. Night Shyamalan film. I think it needed a twist. Like, most twists in M. Night Shyamalan films, I'm like, really, did you need to go there? Let's go a bit smaller. We don't need a massive twist here. I think it would have helped to have just something tangible at the end. Have something a bit more interesting going on at the end rather than just the most obvious thing happening, which is like...
Yeah, and we're getting into spoiler territory, so
yeah, I guess so.
Create like a
spoilers,
breaker, something earlier. But like, here's the thing though, I don't think a twist would have worked.
I don't think it would have saved it. I wouldn't have saved it. I do think it would have like made the payoff slightly better, and it would have made for a slightly more satisfying experience.
Yeah. So we'll get fully into spoilers. I just don't think the ending works because it's so painfully obvious.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's so because like we're in the spoilers now. Dave Bautista's character dies, and from that point forward, there is just no barrier for this. Felt like there's no buoy for me to like latch onto. From that point forward, Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge just kind of like explain everything in the most obvious way, and then there's supposed to be this big like emotional climax where it's like, okay, who are we gonna kill, me or you? Who's it gonna be? Who's the one who has to go? And then they just lay out all the information, and we're just like, oh no, this is just obvious.
Yeah,
you're gonna kill him, and then that will stop everything because that's what literally all of the possible evidence that we have been given points to. This is not a climax. This is just like it just kind of skipped over the climax to the resolution, and there's no like big moment where it's like, oh, this is what we've been building to. It just builds and builds and builds and builds, and we're just like, so I guess that's
okay. And
Sure.
again, this demonstrates why Dave Bautista is really the glue that holds this film together. Like, as soon as he's taken out the scene, you get the exposition from different characters, which just doesn't work. And it just lacks any real conflict and just feels just bland and uninteresting without Dave Bautista. So he definitely was carrying this film on his back slightly.
Completely agree. It's just frustrating.
It is
Because there was a
frustrating.
lot going for this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just really doesn't work because so much of the exposition is delivered through a TV, which is so stupid. And it's just like, I get what they're doing because they're like timing it and they're showing the pre-recorded footage, but it's like, why build all of this ambiguity through the TV? If not, like, when you look back on it, no, they were just literally showing them all of the information that was needed for the plot through a TV.
Yeah.
And it's like, why set up the ambiguousness if you aren't going to bait off?
Yeah, and that's why I do think this story would have always been tricky to like make into a film. I do think it was a pretty unadaptable story because it did rely so heavily on exposition. It's just not that interesting to watch
unless you restructure.
Yeah, it doesn't work unless you do, as you say, completely go from ground zero, just get the concept, then restructure entirely from there. It would have always had to have had exposition. So I don't really blame Shyamalan for choosing that way. Like, it was pretty
right. That's fine.
Like, it was a like decent enough way to deliver it. It just felt a bit bland, and like really,
so much of the choices just felt uninspired, I guess. Which is not something that I want from a Shyamalan movie. I mean, it's not something I want from any movie, obviously, but like from a Shyamalan, like really, we're just going with the most bland, obvious choice. Also, I just got that we're ending the movie with the two gay characters having to sacrifice themselves so that way they'll, like, religious harbingers of the apocalypse can save the world.
Yeah, it's a weird,
really.
It's a bit murky messaging there. It's a bit murky messaging.
Really? That's what you're going with?
It could be read in a quite homophobic light. I don't think Shyamalan intended on it. I think that's just.
So. Shyamalan seems like a chill dude, and I want to make this clear. There's some people. I saw this comment, and somebody said, like, you never hope that this happens, but I hope that Shyamalan has found out that he's like a rapist or something, so he stops making movies. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude, chill. Like, Shyamalan seems like a chill dude. I've watched.
Like, I enjoy.
He's like a genuinely nice person.
And every time a Shyamalan film comes out, I'm excited to see it still. Whatever it be, I'm still excited for it.
He makes fun movies, and it's cool that he funds them all himself.
Yeah, and I still think this is a fun movie. Like, it's still, as you said, it's an enjoyable watch.
To people. I just have personal problems, but no, I do think that the messaging doesn't work. And all it needed was just a little edge, a little sliver of ambiguousness at the end to not make it so. Sure, but the fact that everything, like all of the evidence that the Horsemen present, everything that like Jonathan Groff is presenting about which one of them should die, everything is just so clear and obvious that the entire third act just undercuts every single bit of tension that was building up to that final act.
Yeah, like, I wasn't even questioning which of the dads would die. Like, at least if you're going to tell a story like this, make me question which of them it might be. No, it was always going to be him. So. Yeah, I don't know. The ending just really left me unsatisfied. It really did. Yeah, and it's a shame because the journey to get there was decent enough. Not great, but decent enough.
I will say, I don't know what this was bothering me, and I brought this up to you before we started recording. The grasshopper thing, like, if that was pointless, why'd you keep on bringing it up? Because that is brought up all throughout the first act, even into the second act and the third act. Like, it's brought up, like, even before Bautista dies, he's like, you were good at catching grasshoppers. It's like, what? Because, like, one of the first lines of the movie, maybe even the first line of the movie, is she puts a grasshopper in a glass bottle. That's what jar.
Yeah, jar. Yes.
And she puts this grasshopper in a glass jar and says, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to watch you, or something along those lines. And it's like, if that was a metaphor and this entire thing was a social experiment where nobody was actually getting hurt, would it have been incredibly obvious and would I have rolled my eyes a bit? Yeah.
Sure. Yes, but it would have been more interesting than what we actually got given. It would have been more
interesting. It would have at least given me something to chew on after the movie. And it also would have justified bringing up the grasshoppers, like, so frequently throughout the movie. It just felt like, I don't know. And I guess that was like, subversion of expectations. You think that it's going to be all these different things. It's going to be building all these different things.
And
but like I don't want to be that, annoying film Twitter person, but like Knives Out does a really good job subverting expectations because the central plot is a red herring, but there are a bunch of subplots that,
Yeah.
even though the central plot is a red herring, it derails the central plot, but that red herring then affects all of the subplots, and all of those subplots kind of merge into becoming the main plot. With this, there aren't that many strong subplots. So when you have all of these red herrings with the central plot, and then it is a subversion of expectations, well, you have no subplots for that to affect. So then that entire central plot was just pointless.
Yeah,
Like, there's a very distinct difference.
I even question if the red herrings were deliberate or it's just a really standard simple story. Like I don't even know if all of those are really actually sort of things you're
I
meant
need
to
to
pick up,
rewatch it.
or it was just they were just telling a simple, really basic,
Straightforward
obvious
story.
story throughout. Like it's very possible that was the case, and we're just now reading too much into it because knowing, given the context of M. Night Shyamalan work, it feels like a weird M. Night Shyamalan film. It doesn't necessarily feel like an M. Night Shyamalan film, which is strange.
Yeah. I just think that there are just some like intrinsic structural screenwriting problems.
It was flawed to begin with. I don't know if it would have ever worked. I think M. Night Shyamalan did his best job that he could have done really directing it, but it was just fundamentally flawed the whole time. So I don't know if I'm going to give it a score. I'd give it maybe I think a 5 is probably fair for it.
Yeah, I'm also going to throw it a 5. There were things that I enjoyed. I would recommend this movie.
Yeah, if you want
some
a
really
fun
big
sort of
problems that just left me with a sour taste in my mouth. So,
Yeah.
but I also like this movie. Like, I wouldn't hate rewatching. Like, if it was
No,
just on
it's
to
just
put on in the background or something, sure. Like, it's not a bad movie. It just
Like I think it's
definitely isn't.
if you're looking at M. Night Shyamalan's entire filmography, it's middling in there, which is not great since it's a 5 out of 10, but still, that is probably where it lands.
Absolutely. So 5 out of 10 from each of us. Awards chances. No.
It's a early in the year horror film by M. Night Shyamalan.
No. Dave Bautista would be worthy of some attention.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see by the end of the year. I don't imagine
not by the end of the year. As far as if we did like a January, February awards, he'd probably be like,
or the HCA mid-season award, like maybe if there's not been 5.
Doing well at the HCA mid-seasons, yeah.
It could, yeah.
Because people are liking this movie, so
they are.
But yeah, this just wasn't for me.
Didn't entirely work.
But that is it. Thank you everybody for watching. Really, really appreciate it. And you can stick around for more awards in film, all of the like, or not. Who cares? But thank you everybody for watching. We will maybe not see you later. But until then, stay safe, everybody, and goodbye.